Hello and welcome to Connect Church Online. My name is David and I'm so glad you took the time to join us. I believe you're going to be encouraged through the Word today, and I invite you to open your heart up as God speaks to you through our speaker and through the Word. Get in touch with us so we can help you take your next step.
Good morning. We're reading today is from Jeremiah chapter 11. It's not chapter 11, it's chapter 29, reading from verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. Just as I start this morning, there's a friend I know who loves going on holiday, but it's not necessarily the going that he likes the most. No, there are more other things that we like to do before we even get in the car and start it up. He likes looking over the maps. He likes gathering the information about the destination he is going to, and the searching and the planning that should go into a long trip. He figures out how many miles it is, how much petrol he'll use, and how much it's going to cost, where he's going to spend the night. If he gets that late, he loves the scheduling and the packing that goes along with all of it. Now you may think that this is a little weird, especially if you've never done any of these things before, any of the big trips that you've made, but in your heart you're telling yourself that some of them are necessary. Every trip you take, every time you walk out the door, you need to make some type of planning. A trip, even if you're going to the shop, well, especially if I'm going to the shop, I'll say to Betty, write a list out for me, but everything that's on that list, I'll get. Then I'll come back for the shop, so she'll say, oh, you forgot this. I say, but you told me it was on the list. If it's not on the list, I can't buy it. But that's what happens every time I go to the shop. Or even a trip to a restaurant. Just think when you went to a restaurant, you went for a meal. Well, what you got to do first, you've got to go and phone up and see if there's a place available at the time that you want. And that's what happens. There's always planning involved. Now, I'm sure that there are probably some of you thinking that planning for the new year doesn't seem to be a big deal. Well, I remember when we were younger, everybody used to make New Year's resolutions. It was always going to be, I'm going to stop smoking, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and it's all planning. Plan ahead. There may even be one or two of you here thinking that the year is going to happen anyway. It's going to go into 2021. It doesn't matter if I plan ahead or no. No matter how you plan it, well, it will happen. But let me give you an example about other things that will harm if you don't plan anything. And I can say this about all us drivers. We'll say, right, if you never check the engine oil in your car, what will happen? Your car will seize up, won't it? Well, this is the things. And if you smoke, just think what will happen to you when you're 60. The days when I used to smoke and how you felt. And now I think they're dirty, smelly things. But that's what happens. And here's another thing. This is me. I'm talking about myself this time. You've never exercised for 40 years. You only eat what you like to eat. And during that time, what happens when you get up to 60-year-old? You end up like this, look. Just think. Do you see the thought process? Do you see where we're going with this? If you just let your life or your year run its course and never make any plans or any formulated short-term or long-term goals, then when you're 3/4 of the way through the year, you'll look back and say, wow, I've never really accomplished anything this year that the year's almost over. What's worse, we'll look back when you're 3/4 of the way through your life and say, I haven't really accomplished anything in that as well. Christians that don't plan out their lives ultimately work themselves into a busyness corner. Like they're always running around but never really accomplishing anything. Failure to plan is actually failing to fail. It doesn't have to be that way, and our scripture verse points that out to us. And I can look, we've got 3 points here, and it's his planning, his purpose, and his provisions. We'll look at his planning, and it says, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. For I know the plans I have for you. There are 2 types of Christians that this is aimed at. First of all, there is the planner. But they are not the kind of planner we want to be. Yes, the planner will go into the new year with everything planned out. They'll never have their job plans. But they'll leave something out. They'll leave out the most important part of planning. Does anyone happen to know what the most important part of planning is? And that's leaving out God. And it's Proverbs 3, 5 and 6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. It's very important that we understand that we cannot leave God out. Additionally, we can't even say, well, we shouldn't leave God out of planning for your life. We can't say that because of verse 11. And it says, for I know the plans I have for you. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Now, the other Christian that this is aimed at is the non-planner. This is the person that will wander and wander through the entire year without seeking God and the plans that he has for them. These 2 people are just alike because they are both out of fellowship with God and they are both relying on sources other than God to provide for them. The coming year is going to be the same as it's been for any other year that's passed or what's coming. It's going to have 12 months. It's got 52 weeks and it's got 365 days. Just now, how do we spend all of our time? Well, the first 3.5 months we spend in our bed or sleeping. 16 days a year we will spend eating. 9 days we will spend in the church, and 50 to 80 days we will spend working. 5 to 10 days we will spend travelling to work, going shopping, going whatever we do, we'll travel. 9 to 15 days we will spend in the toilet or in the bathroom, as people want to cry it, when we're having a bath or a shower, the toilet, and that's what happens. With all that moving, working, eating, sleeping, the average person still has at least 100 days that are uncounted for, and that we can use by God to improve them, if they'll let God do that. I cannot overemphasize the importance that God is planning has on you. Without God's planning, what about our quality of life? What about God's planning for the purpose of life in life, and God's planning for the direction in life? These are very important parts of your life that we cannot trust to everyone else except God. Additionally, trusting God ensures you don't waste any time in trying to make up your mind or changing your mind. So with planning, you have 3 choices. You can make your best plans and try to carry them out through your own strength. We can make careful plans and ask God to bless them. Or we can begin with God, ask Him about His plans, and offer ourselves to Him to carry out His purpose. I've listened to preachers over the years, but for the most part, they will only pass away without notice, as they only focus on themselves. Oddly enough, it will be the simple minister that follows God's will and plan for his life that will be remembered. I read a book about Billy Graham, and it says Billy Graham, for an example, is a very simple man. Well, was a very simple man. He always brought a very simple message. He had a very simple life and very simple planning. But all of these was based on God. And it was God's plans for his life. And when we can go into the new year with his purpose, an active relationship with God is what makes life complete. It is up to us, meaning to live. It is what gives us our purpose in life. Without that relationship with God and the assurance and hope that we will one day spend the rest of eternity in heaven with him, many people, even those who are well known, cannot have a vest in the future. For example, H.G. Wells was a famous historian and philosopher, and at the age of 61, he says, "I have no peace. All life is at the end of my terror." And there was a man cried Ralph Barton. He was a top cartoonist who contributed to such elite newspapers such as the Saturday Evening Post, left this note pinned to his pillow before taking his life. I have had a few difficulties, many friends, great successes. I have gone from wife to wife, from house to house, visited great countries of the world, but I am fed up with inventing devices to fill up 24 hours of a day. You see, without God, there is no purpose in life. We are simply inventing ways and devices to fill up 24 hours a day. And don't confuse God's purpose for your life with investing in your time and busyness. Yes, many people confuse the business of God with the busyness of their agenda, both in their lives and in the church. And we can come into the new year with His provisions. These verses tell us that God has already many plans. Read that again and pay attention to the tense. God has already many plans for us. For I know the plans I have for you. That's planning that has already taken place. That's planning that has already been done. And you don't have to do any intense or stress-invoking searching to find it. What God's plans are for you today, your week, your month, your year, and your life. All of those are short and long-range goals. That involves action, plans to accomplish. Go to God, ask Him for the plans that He has for your life and the provisions or the help that goes along with performing these plans. We begin with God, ask Him about His plans and offer ourselves to Him to carry out His provisions, His purposes. God is going to purposefully make a plan for your life that will not intentionally fail. He won't do that. However, the plans that He has for your life can fail. And any failure that has occurred on any plan of God that you were following is because you were at fault and not God. See these verses again. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. The key to finding God's plans in your lives, our purpose for our lives, and receiving His provisions for our lives is all found in that last verse, verse 13. Have you done that? Have you sought God with all your heart? That's the only way to plan for this upcoming new year, is to seek God with all your heart. Amen.